Hello and welcome back. This is Nigel Quinnan, VP of Development at LumenVox, and this will be our sixth installment out of our 7-part video series describing the installation of Asterisk, UniMRCP, and LumenVox 13.1. In this episode, we'll be installing the LumenVox services and getting those all configured to work with Asterisk and UniMRCP. You may recall from our previous videos we have done various installation steps, including PJ-SIP, Asterisk. We got all of those working, and then we installed the UniMRCP and the Asterisk UniMRCP modules. Now this current episode that we are going through is an interesting step because it could be used in isolation just to install the LumenVox speech services on an existing Asterisk machine or any other type of Linux machine. So the basic instructions and configuration steps we'll go through here are pretty much the same as you would go through to set up any Linux machine with LumenVox. So I'll try and point out some of those differences as we go through, but the main focus here will be to get LumenVox services installed on this Asterisk box that we've been working on. So, why install the LumenVox packages? Well, LumenVox provides ASR and TTS speech resources that can be used by Asterisk and many other platforms. And as well as telephony platforms, LumenVox is used around the world for a variety of other systems and projects and some commercial enterprises. So again, today we'll just be focusing on the Asterisk configuration, but again, this configuration would be pretty much the same as it would be for any other LumenVox user. Some of the details that we'll be going through today are contained in this knowledge base article that we have online, and that's pretty much where we're going to be starting. So we'll go take a look at this knowledge base article in a moment. Once we've done all of this LumenVox installation, the next step will be to move on and do some testing of everything to make sure that Asterisk, UniMRCP, and LumenVox are all working happily together. And I'll try and go through some tips and tricks in that next episode that you might find useful. So here is our knowledge base page. You can see the URL up here. Basically, if you navigate to lumenvox.com/knowledgebase, it will take you to the home page of our knowledge base. From there, you can navigate to all of our articles that we have published. And again, we try and get everything on here that it provides useful information, tips, tricks, troubleshooting, configuration steps, whatever we can think of for users to reference. Again, we've tried to put as much detail and thought into these various articles as we can to try and provide this as an online resource for our users so that they can reference this if they are stuck. And obviously this is available 24 hours a day. So here we're going to be going through the Linux installation. We support a number of different platforms. Linux is probably the dominant platform for our user base. We also support Windows. So if you're running Windows, you'll need to refer to those Windows installation instructions. A little bit different than Linux, obviously, but it's the same general idea. Essentially in Windows, you would be using the Windows System Manager to run the services and install those and run those as services. In Linux, we're going to be installing the packages, and these run as daemons in the background. So we'll cover some of that. Recently, with the introduction of 13.1, we added support for CentOS 7, Red Hat 7. So if this is the platform that you are currently running, then you would refer to these details. As you recall, we are working with a CentOS 6 installation, so we'll be following these details right here. And we also have details for Red Hat 5, CentOS 5 below that. And we also have support for 32-bit in CentOS 5. Again, all of the details are in this installation knowledge base, so I encourage you to kind of read through this. Don't forget to add your language packs if you need these. For ASR, the American English language pack is included with the base engine package. However, if you have any other language that you need, you will have to install those ASR language packs for those specific languages that you need to support. Also, most importantly, and this is a step that a lot of people forget or skip or don't realize that they need to do, if you are installing TTS, you will also need to install the TTS voices that you have licensed. If you forget this step, then everything may appear to be kind of working, but you won't get any TTS functionality. And it might take you a little while to figure out what's going on. So please be sure to include your voice pack for the TTS voice that you've purchased. Again, there's a lot of information in here about how to go through and install the LumenVox packages, and again, we'll be going through a lot of these details. There's also some troubleshooting tips in here, how to install RPMs without using Yum. Again, we discourage this, but we do know that there are some users that just, for whatever reason, cannot use the Yum repository. Yum makes life so much easier, as you will see in a moment. We've also got some troubleshooting steps that can be useful when you're trying to install in a variety of cases. So this is the installation article. And again, we're going to be using the CentOS 6 version, so we'll be following these steps here. So we're going to cut this portion of the text. And again, this is a command that you can run from the console window. If you prefer to not mess with the console, or you are unclear of what's going on there, basically what this does, it will edit or create a file in this location, and this will be the contents. In fact, what we'll do once we've run this, we'll come back and actually confirm that this is the case. So back to our console window here. You recall I copied the instructions. I'm just pasting it there. That was simple. I really didn't have to do anything, just pasted it into the console. And now if we go back to our article, we can see this is the file that we should have created. So copy that and use VI to go ahead and edit it. And as you can see here, this is the contents of this file. So again, this is the etc yum.repos.d.lumenvox.repo file. So all this may be complicated to you, don't worry about it. This basically tells the Yum repository where to go look for LumenVox packages. So it's on our lumenvox.com/packages site, and the option that we selected was for EL6, 64-bit, and that is exactly what is configured here. So if we go back and compare this to our website, let's see if we can show them both at the same time. Great, so this matches this. So this is good. Go ahead and exit this file. And this is where Yum comes in very helpful. So we're going to be using Yum to do the installation for us. Again, these details are on the web page. If you look at what's happening here, we're actually telling Yum to go ahead and install the LumenVox client, the SRE, which is the speech recognition engine, the media server, the TTS server, and the license server. So it's going to go through and check with the published packages from LumenVox, and it'll go ahead and download those, and you'll notice there are a bunch of dependencies that are needed for these packages to work correctly. Now this is an important step and an important aspect if you happen to be installing these packages as RPMs without using Yum. If you were not using Yum, you'd probably run into dependency issues from these packages, and you would have to go through and install these manually from RPM packages. That can be a fairly painful process if you look at everything that's involved here. So again, Yum takes that pain away and allows the Yum service to basically figure out all those dependencies for you. You don't have to worry about it. So again, we're just going to go ahead and hit yes to confirm that we want to install those. And it will download all of the LumenVox packages and the various dependencies, which is pretty neat. And as you can see, it's downloading version 13.1.100 for EL6, 64-bit. The one thing to note here is you'll see that when it stops moving, the TTS server actually appears to be installing a 32-bit version as opposed to the 64-bit versions of the other services. You may think that this is a problem. It's not. We actually have our TTS server running as a 32-bit process, even on 64-bit installations. So that's not something that's gone wrong. That is intentional. And again, a lot of these packages, these dependencies, are based on the fact that we need the 32-bit libraries to go along with this TTS server. I know that can be particularly confusing to some users, but it's all normal, and again, Yum takes care of all of the details for you. Okay, and through the magic of television, I saved you a couple of minutes of watching things install there. It doesn't take too long, 2 or 3 minutes, that's all. But now all of the packages are installed, we see no errors, so everything is fairly happy. You'll recall from a few moments ago, I mentioned the important step that you need to take if you're installing TTS is to include the Tts Voice that you wish to use. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and install the Chris voice, which is American English Male. Go ahead and install that, shouldn't take too long. And this should be the last of the LumenVox packages that we need to install. So as part of the installation process here, what Yum will do is actually set up a bunch of configuration files for the LumenVox services. Even though the services are not running right now, the configuration files should be created and ready for us to go modify. There are a couple of configuration files that we do want to set up. One of them is for the media server file, for the media server, and this is located in the etc LumenVox folder. In fact, all of the LumenVox configuration files are in this etc LumenVox location. So we're going to go ahead and modify the mediaserver.conf file. As you can see, the file itself exists. It was created by the installer. I'm going to go ahead and change the media server IP address. As you recall, we're using the local machine, the same machine as the Asterisk is installed on. So the loopback address would actually work here. That's completely fine. However, it's best practice to actually put the IP address of the machine itself in here, which I believe was 172.18.0.109, if memory serves. And memory doesn't serve. It is 18.2.109. So it's important that you put the actual IP address in here. If you put the incorrect one, then you could run into all kinds of weird problems. Again, the reason I'm putting this in here, even though everything is running on the local machine, let's say, for example, I wanted to run a test from a different machine, just to do a sanity check of the LumenVox stuff. If I pointed the test to this machine, it would try and communicate back with its loopback address if this wasn't set up correctly, which would not work. So again, we're changing the MRCP IP address to the physical machine of wherever the LumenVox is installed, and that happens to be 172.18.2.109 in my case. Again, on your installation, it's almost certainly going to be different to this. Okay. So the next thing we're going to be changing is the SIP port number. And as you can see here, the SIP port is using a default value of port 5060. Now the reason we're changing this, and it's an important reason, is because Asterisk actually uses this port. So if we did not change this, then there's going to be a conflict between LumenVox and Asterisk, since they're both running on the same machine. And the problem there would be whichever service started first would acquire and hold on to that port 5060. So either LumenVox would work or Asterisk would work, but the two of them would not work together. If you were being creative and you were trying to run the connectivity between Asterisk and LumenVox using MRCP v2, you could put in a separate port here, maybe port 5066 or something like that. However, we discourage that because using MRCP v1, which is what we configured earlier, is a much simpler way to configure things, and it also makes debugging a whole lot easier. If you look at a Wireshark trace, for example, or a PCAP, TCP dump, you can actually see the traffic from port 554, which is the MRCP v1 port, and that just pertains to the LumenVox communication. If you're trying to figure out SIP traffic, then you've got all of the incoming calls, all of the asterisk calls, asterisk talking to itself, and then asterisk talking to LumenVox. If everything was running on SIP, it can get very confusing. So the simplest way is to use the RTSP connection between asterisk and LumenVox. So again, the value that we need to put into the SIP port here is port 0, which effectively disables the LumenVox SIP connectivity. So we're not going to be using any SIP connectivity to or from LumenVox in this configuration. Again, we're going to be using RTSP on port 554. So again, this is an important step, and it's an important step to understand why we're making this change. If you don't make this change, you will run into problems if you have asterisk and LumenVox on the same machine. Okay, go ahead and save this file. So we've configured our mediaserver.conf file. The next thing we need to do is configure our license server file. And before I get too in depth with what I'm going to be doing here, it's worth pointing out that there are a number of different types of licensing that LumenVox offer. And depending on which one you purchased, you may end up having to configure things slightly differently based on whichever type of license you got. So again, there are on-premise, there are subscription, there are flexible. All of the installations for these various types of licenses are fairly similar. However, the specifics of each one is very slightly different. So you need to understand which one it is that you have in order to understand how to install that on your system. When you purchase LumenVox licenses, there will be an email that goes out with complete instructions on what to do and how to go about setting up those licenses. So they all involve going into this etc LumenVox licenseserver.conf file and changing a number of things. So you could be installing flexible licensing, in which case you would change this to 1, and then you would put the server GUID that you receive in your email into this location here. There are a variety of different settings also available for flexible, but we won't go into those here. And if you're using subscription, you would add a section at the bottom of this file for username and password, essentially, to authenticate with the LumenVox subscription servers that live out in the cloud. Another option is to just use the perpetual licenses, sorry, which are available, and those can be installed directly in the license server using the default settings as we have here. So if you're using the perpetual, which is an older style licensing mechanism, then you would just leave things as they are here and follow the instructions again on the website that describes how to go about installing those licenses. Again, this all sounds very confusing, but it's really not. However, it's an important step that you must do to make sure that you go ahead and enable your licenses that you're provided with from LumenVox. Otherwise, the various ASR and TTS services will not work. So I've gone ahead and installed the licenses that I needed to for this demonstration. Again, it was a very trivial installation to go ahead and put those in. So you need to do the same, again, following the instructions that are in the email that you get with the licenses. Now we have everything installed and configured. The next thing we need to do is go ahead and start the LumenVox services. Oops. So service, all of the services or all of the service daemons start with the LV. and then the name of the service, and then the D for daemon. And so it's going to be LVSRE D start for the SRE, or speech recognition engine. Service LV license D start for the license server. TTS for the TTS server. Manager for the manager service, and media server for the media server service. Oops. Okay, so that should be all of the LumenVox services installed and started there. Give them a few seconds to do their thing. Then we can actually verify that they are running by doing a PS with a grep for LV for the LumenVox tag. We can see here that all of the services are indeed running. If you want to do a quick sanity check to make sure that everything is doing what it should be doing, you can run the LV show config, which is a little command line utility that checks the configuration of the LumenVox services to verify that everything looks good, and the -a parameter runs a bunch of tests. In fact, it's the all tests, so it's going to check everything. So as you can see, it's running through here. We can see the version, everything is installed by the defaults, which is all looking good. We have acquired an ASR license. We've done a TTS synthesis correctly. We see a couple of failures here, and let's take a look at those. So the MRCP v2 TTS synthesis failed. This is expected in our situation because we actually disabled the SIP, or MRCP v2 interface, to the LumenVox media server, if you recall. So I would not expect this to work. In fact, if this did work, that would be a problem. So this is fine in our specific case that we're running right now, where we only expect MRCP v1 to work. So, and as you can see here, the MRCP v1 TTS synthesis did in fact succeed successfully. Same for the ASR recognition. MRCP v1 succeeded, and MRCP v2 did not succeed, which was as expected. The reason you see two of the MRCP v2 tests being run, one is using the UDP interface and one is using the TCP interface. So as you can see, we've installed all of LumenVox. We've got it licensed, we've got it configured and running. So now we are clear to proceed on to the final step, step 7, which is testing everything. Thank you again for joining me.